Barry Slaughter-Olson here from Interpret America, and I am with Michael Erard, an author and journalist who has focused most of his career on linguistics and language. Hi, Michael.
Hi, Barry.
It's great to have you here. Michael's joining us from, I believe it's Portland, Maine, correct?
South Portland, Maine, yes.
That's right. How's the weather?
It is rainy and cold, but there's snow on the ground.
Oh, well, sounds like New England winter is not far off.
New England, yeah.
Well, great. Again, Michael, thank you for your time. Let me just quickly share with those who are watching. Michael has written a couple of books that have to do with language. One called Slips, Stumbles, and Verbal Blunders and What They Mean. And another called Babble No More, The Search for the World's Most Extraordinary Language Learners. And he's also working on a couple of new books, and he might mention some of those as we talk today. But the reason that I decided to meet with Michael for just a few minutes today is to talk about Lenguas 2019, which will take place in Mexico City on January 24th through the 26th. And Michael is going to be one of two panelists for our opening panel, where we're going to be discussing language and communication. Together with Michael, we will have Concepcion Compani, who is a well-known researcher from the Philological Research Institute of the National Autonomous University of Mexico, and also a member of the Mexican Academy of the Spanish Language. So we're looking forward to getting these two thinkers about language together and discussing a topic that we've entitled, What Matters Most, Communication or Language Purity? But let's go ahead and just talk for a minute, Michael. I have a couple of questions. First thing, I know that you were recently at the Max Planck Institute in the Netherlands, focusing on nothing but linguistics and language. Tell me a little bit about what you did.
Well, I got a fortunate chance to spend a year as writer-in-residence at the Max Planck Institute for Psycholinguistics, which is kind of the world's only research institute devoted to the study of brain and language. And my mission was to try to understand what's happening at the cutting edge of the language sciences, and to get a chance to sort of, take myself out of the day-to-day grind and be able to go to workshops and go to lab meetings and see something about where the ideas form, well in advance of their publication as research articles.
Mm-hmm. And so what did you see?
I saw all kinds of amazing stuff. There's very much a focus there on thinking about the language-ready brain. What are the genetics that underlie the language-ready brain? What's the evolutionary history of the language-ready brain? Really, really interesting stuff. What are individual differences in language abilities? So for a long time, psychologists and linguists have been focused on what's invariant among groups, but now they have the tools to be able to explore how it is that people differ from each other uniquely. So that was really interesting. And there's also an interesting focus on gesture, which I'm not able to do right now because my hands are getting cut off. But the role of gesture, not as something to the side of communication, to the side of language, but something that is integral to language itself. Mm-hmm. So it seemed like every single week there was a workshop or a conference or a meeting where people were talking about all of these things. It was like a fire hose of information. It was really, really incredible. And I miss it. I miss it dearly.
Well, it sounds like it was a wonderful opportunity. Now, of course, you'll be joining us in January for Lenguas, and we're going to be looking at language, and in particular, how language and translation and interpreting, right? Language going across language barriers, and how communication is facilitated through translation and interpreting. But I'm kind of curious because you and I met several years ago when you were on your book tour for Babble No More, And I just found it fascinating that we had a journalist who decided to focus on language and linguistics and communication. How did you make that decision?
Uh, I finished a PhD in English with a focus on English linguistics in the year 2000. And I was presented with a choice at that point. I could pursue an academic career, or I could pursue more seriously forms of long form nonfiction writing that I'd already been doing on the side. And I was doing some reporting about kind of academia and figures in academia, things about university life. And it just occurred to me that there were a tremendous number of untold stories in linguistics that linguists knew, and that people always found fascinating when I told them, non-linguists.
Yeah.
And I thought that I could put those together and use my knowledge of the discipline to present those stories. And it also seemed like there was a hunger for people to understand more about language and how language works, what languages are really like and what our experiences are like, but to do so using my background and to be able to mine the scientific literature, to inform the stories and really build out the stories so that what the result was not a superficial take, but something that was deeper and would kind of advance people's understanding of how language works. So not to make people linguists, but to increase their level of comfort in thinking about their own language and about other people's languages, and understanding something about how the rest of the world perceives languages as well.
Yeah. And, it's interesting that you mentioned that, because within the professional translation and interpreting community, there is a lot of talk right now about the need for outreach, for us to go beyond our own circle to help people understand what it is that we do, with, the ever increasing number of reports about AI and what artificial intelligence is doing, and that supposedly it's going to replace all these jobs. One of the areas where I see that being extremely difficult is in translation and interpreting, although it is changing the way we work. And we need to get our story out about what it takes to successfully communicate ideas across language barriers. And so, man, it's going to be great to have you down at Lenguas in January, because this is the kind of profile we need. A lot more journalists to focus on how it is that we do our work, and to be able to write for those who are the uninitiated or don't know much about our profession. So that's fabulous. Anyway, Michael, thank you so much for your time. Let me just remind everybody who's watching that Lenguas 2019 will take place on January 24th through the 26th, 2019 in Mexico City. And you can learn more at lenguas.org. Our early bird pricing is going to end on November 30th. So if you register before then, you can save 20% on registration. So register today. And the plenary day of the conference, where Michael will be speaking together with Concepcion Compani as we kick off the conference, is going to be held in the amphitheater of the Antiguo Colegio San Ildefonso, which is an amazing, amazing venue. Beautiful, has great murals that were done by Diego Rivera. And it's just in the heart of Mexico City's historic district. You really can't ask for a better venue for these kinds of great conversations about language and communication. So let me just say that if you'd like to know more about Michael's work, you can follow him on Twitter at Michael Erard, or you can go to his website, which is appearing on the screen below me as I speak. So anyway, thank you, Michael, so much for your time, and we look forward to seeing you and everybody else at Lenguas 2019.
Yeah, right on. See you.